After traveling back home from London against beating the New York Jets 13-11 on Sunday, the Denver Broncos are set to work out former first-round wide receiver from the Tennessee Titans, Treylon Burks. Welcome in Broncos country to the Broncos Breakdown by Chat Sports. My name is Moose. Now, historically speaking, the Denver Broncos have always worked out players on Tuesdays, today being Monday, but obviously Ian Rappaport, one of the NFL talking heads, was on this earlier, talking about the fact that Treylon Burks was set to, visit and kind of work out with the Denver Broncos. So on today's episode, I'm going to tell you why signing Treylon Burks, if it happens, can be useful for Mile High, sitting at 4-2 currently. Now, before we get on with the rest of the episode, I do want to thank you guys for the 897 subscribers that we gained versus the New York Jets on Sunday. And then, of course, being 27 subscribers away from our next major milestone at 44,000. So if you love engaging, thought-provoking, and sometimes downright infuriating Denver Broncos content, I'm the Moose for you. Hit that subscribe button right now. Speaking of infuriating, I'm only going to do this once, and I'm going to never mention it again. This is going to be the only time that I ever do it. I had a lot of fans that got down and questioned my credibility yesterday. Now, remember, I'm a grown man, right? I'm on YouTube for a living. I can handle when people disagree with my football takes. In fact, I encourage it. I want you to argue with me about what you believe is true. But the minute that you start calling me a liar or questioning my credibility about the game of football, that's where I take some umbrage. Everybody was telling me that it was Garrett Bowles that was the one responsible for the safety. He had the penalty, they said, in the end zone that caused the safety on the Broncos, when in reality, it was Quinn Meinerz. So if you want to take a look at the full screen, I've got ahead of you. The blue circle is Quinn Meinerz, where you can clearly see the hold that the refs actually called. And the green is Garrett Bowles putting up a very clean block in the NFL. So if you're going to question my credibility without any research of your own and then just call me an idiot for it, that's where I'm going to prove you wrong. In fact, Quinn Meinerz actually talked about it himself, admitting that the penalty was on him. The announcers got it wrong. Kurt Warner and Rich Eisen were the ones that kept saying it was on Garrett Bowles. Here's what Quinn Meinerz had to say specifically about the penalty. I took a set. I had my head straight down into the chest of Clemons. According to the rule book, this is illegal. But I just got my butt whooped. I fell down. I still had my hands attached to him. When you fall down and have your hands still attached to someone, they're going to see the jersey tug and throw the flag for holding. I have to be better. So your right guard is admitting that he caused the penalty. But yet some people in the comment section are calling Moose an idiot, calling Moose a moron, and saying that I don't know the game of football because I can't get little tiny things like that correct. Well, first of all, I was right. Second of all, if you don't like my takes, that's fine. Like I said, I'm a grown man. I can handle the name calling. I can handle, the people disagreeing with my takes because I'm a big boy. But if you're going to insult me, get your facts correct. That's all I'm going to say about that. Let's get on with the actual video. Ian Rappaport was the first one on this. Actually, believe it or not, I was at Taco Bell with my wife. We were having a nice little lunch on Saturday when this came in. And I said, sorry, babe, I got to go out to the car real quick and make a quick little short about this. So you saw that over the weekend. But the Broncos, are set to work out Treylon Burks. Now, you can say what you want about Treylon Burks as a player that has not quite lived up to the hype of being a first-round draft pick. But the truth is that I still believe there's a lot of untapped potential in this guy. And you'll see what I'm talking about here in a little bit. I think part of this is playing for the Tennessee Titans, who, let's be completely honest, when he was drafted, it was Ryan Tannehill and Derrick Henry, and it was the Derrick Henry show. Then Brian Callahan comes in. You've got a combo of Mason Rudolph, Will Levis, and then before you even get Cam Ward, you get injured and then released by the Tennessee Titans. So he has not played a single snap the entire season. And like I said, drafted 18th overall. He's 6'2", 225 pounds. Like, that's what I just can't get over. Like, he fits this prototypical big-bodied wide receiver. And if you look at his numbers, yeah, in 3 seasons, or it's not quite a full 3 seasons because he only played, like 5 games in 2024. The numbers aren't great. He's only found the end zone once, and especially considering you were a first-round pick, he has definitely not lived up to it. But there is one stat on here that I want to highlight for you. 13.2 yards per reception. This is a guy that has a lot of untapped potential. Now, whether or not he'll ever live up to that, it remains to be seen. I'm not even saying the Broncos need to sign him today, elevate him, and watch him roll, because that's not what I think he's going to be. You'll see here in a little bit later on in this episode what I think, if the Broncos sign him, he could turn into. But clutch points, they kind of echoed exactly what everybody thinks about Treylon Burks. Originally drafted 18th overall in 2022, and this was the pick that they got in the A.J. Brown trade when they traded him to the Eagles. Burks carried massive expectations as Tennessee's next top target. Instead, injuries defined his career, from turf toe, concussions, a torn ACL, and a fractured collarbone most recently. Across 3 seasons, he's only totaled 53 receptions, 699 yards, and just 2 touchdowns, playing in 27 games. So he's played a grand total of almost 2 full seasons, not even quite 2 full seasons. But he fits the Peyton build for a wide receiver. Peyton likes big, strong, silky smooth wide receivers. And believe it or not, Treylon Burks, for his size, commands a good amount of physical speed and athleticism. So on paper, this is like the prototypical wide receiver mold. But the one area that we have to talk about where I believe is a glaring red flag is, does he play up to his size? And I think in Tennessee, he definitely did not. But could he end up doing it in a different scheme led by Sean Payton? Now, we're going to talk about that here in just a little bit. Now, before I get to my ad sponsor today, I have to tell you, or ask you, this question. Do you want the Broncos to sign Treylon Burks? Yes or no? Look, I'm going to save my answer for the end of today's video. But you let me know, based off of everything you've heard so far, if the Broncos should go out and sign this former first-round wide receiver. Now, like I said, coming up, we've got a lot more stuff to break down about Treylon Burks. Before we do that, I got to tell you about my friends over at Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right can actually get you paid. You don't want to miss any of the excitement this football season on Prize Picks, where it is good to be right. They've got this brand new feature. It's called the Stacks feature. So if you wanted to pick the exact same player multiple times in the same lineup, you now can. So if you wanted to pick more on Bo Nix's passing yards, rushing yards, and touchdowns, you can do that all in the same lineup, only on Prize Picks. But you can also follow other Prize Picks players directly on the app, copy their lineups in just one click in the new Feed tab. How do you play? You pick the player, you pick the more or the less on their stat projections, and you watch your money multiply. That's it. It's very simple. So all you've got to do is download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It is good to be right. Let's go through a pros and cons list really quick of Treylon Burks. So the cons. He's not good in 50-50 balls. In fact, coming out of college, that was one of the areas that a lot of draft experts said, because of his size, you would think he's so much better in contested catches because of the strength, but he's kind of surprisingly bad at it. He can't stay healthy. That's probably the biggest red flag. And he doesn't body off of small defenders like someone who is 6'2", 225 pounds should do. Now, where does he actually excel? Well, he's got great speed for his size. In fact, getting to the second level is part of his game that has led him to at least some productivity for the Tennessee Titans. He's got a better than average route tree. So usually for a player of his size, it's kind of like, hey, just run out there, bounce off the line of scrimmage, and create your own space instead of relying on quick feet and a decisive and crisp route tree. And there are players like Devontae Smith that have made a living off of being great route runners. He's not one of those players, but he definitely has a better route tree for a guy of his size. He's also great in the quick pass game. He's very, very good at turning his back to the quarterback or turning from his back to around the quarterback so he's face-to-face with them, making sure that in the event that he has a quick little stick route for 5 or 6 yards, he's excellent at that. So there's a lot that you could pick apart and say, yeah, it's not great here, but it's really, really good here, which is why I think he's got a lot of untapped potential. But here's the constant question. Everybody knew that Burks was the player that was going to replace A.J. Brown. When the Titans traded A.J. Brown away, they were using this pick because they believed they could get a younger, cheaper, and just as productive player as A.J. Brown was. He's never lived up to the hype, not once. Which, again, Tennessee Titans problem, Treylon Burks problem. You can go either way, and maybe it's a little bit of both. But if I'm looking at the Broncos wide receiver depth chart right now, I want you to do me a favor. Take Courtland Sutton out of the equation for just a moment. Who has really stepped up this year as the guy? We all said it was going to be Troy Franklin. And while he is definitely better this year than he was last year, I still don't think with the productivity that he's shown on the field, he's established himself as the man. He had a very good game against the Indianapolis Colts. But outside of that one game against the Colts, it's been decent, not great. Same with Marvin Mims and Evan Ingram. Nobody has really stepped up to be the guy behind Courtland Sutton. Sutton has, but we knew that. We knew Courtland was your number one. So Bo is obviously going to have a great rapport with him. Now, does this mean that Treylon Burks, if he gets signed, is your number two? No, that's not what I'm saying. In fact, I don't think he'll ever be a number two. However, this feels like a red zone threat to me. And I'll explain. If you signed Treylon Burks, right now your number one is Courtland Sutton, and you've got a combo of a 2/3 in Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin. If you put the physical size, the physical nature, and just the overall body presence of a guy who is 6'2", 225, like Burks on the field, think about how much you could open up the other two players. That means you can bring Marvin Mims on more motion plays. Troy Franklin can excel over the middle of the field or in the quick game. You have to think of it outside of just another player. And Pat Bryant, who we all want to be, that next player that emerges, kind of like that Michael Thomas, it's clear they're integrating him into the system slower. And, that's the Sean Payton way. All of his rookies are like that. But there is another fact. Remember I said that keep on an eye on that average yards per reception. Burks, for his career, averages 13.2 yards per reception. If you go to the totals in 2025 for the Broncos wide receivers, that would be number 2 on the team behind Courtland Sutton. And Courtland Sutton's at 14.1. So even if Burks becomes your 3 or your 4, if you signed him, right? Because this is all speculation. You could absolutely open up so many different routes and lanes and combos and possibilities for Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin, and it cannot hurt whatsoever. But all of this is a moot point if the play calling doesn't get predictable like it did against the New York Jets, which is why I will ask you again, who should call plays next week against the New York Giants? There's a lot of angry and tumultuous Broncos fans in the comment section that said it should still be Sean. There's a large amount of people that said it should be Davis Webb or Joe Lombardi. Look, you know where I stand, so I'm not going to answer this question straight out of the gate. But I will say this. If you were to sign a player like Burks and hand off the play calling to a guy like Davis Webb, there are so many more possibilities, and I feel like it could renew and reinvigorate the energy surrounding the lackluster offense that we've seen time and time again this 2025 season. So, with that being said, to answer my question from previous in the episode, I would sign Treylon Burks at a veteran minimum. That is going to be my final answer for that. So yes, I'm penciling in my Y for yes for Treylon Burks. Now, before we get on out of here one more time, I do have to tell you and remind you, thank you so much for the subscribers. We are this close to hitting our next milestone of 44,000. Just hit that sub button if you love free, engaging, informative Denver Broncos content. We are right there. As always, Broncos country, a mile high salute to you. Be cool.